Health insurance is certainly something you have to plan for if you want to retire early, but it is not the reason to not retire early. And what I hear too often is people say, Ari, I don't know where on earth health insurance is going to come from, so I'm just going to keep working and I'll figure it out. And you will figure it out, and you might look back and go, hey, why didn't I retire earlier if I was in a fine spot to do so? So yes, it is something that you have to plan for. It's another cost, but too many people don't plan for it and then look back and go, why didn't I retire earlier? So that's what I'm going to go over in today's video. What is the role that healthcare plays if you want to retire early, how to actually plan for it, and then a whole bunch of pro tips so that you are making the right decisions along the way. I am the host of the Early Retirement Podcast. I am the Vice President here at Root Financial, and I am a certified financial planner. If you're looking for more videos so that you can retire early with total confidence regarding tax strategy, healthcare planning, income, investments, estate, the holistic planning process, I invite you to subscribe and like this video for more content just like this. Now let's hop in. What is the role healthcare plays in early retirement? The truth is it's a massive role, and you have a bunch of options. And what's cool about this is you get to be really strategic. I made a video right here where I actually go over what I call subsidy planning versus Roth conversions. And I'm going to explain that a little later in today's video. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but what too many of you are going to do is go, oh my gosh, I've been with the same employer for 20 years, or I've shifted employers and I've always been on, a certain insurance plan and I'm comfortable with it. What am I going to do when I have to go pay for health insurance? How much is it going to cost? I have a client that retired early at 48, and they are right now paying $25,000 a year for health insurance. And some of you are going to hear that and go, oh my gosh, you just confirmed it. I'm never going to retire early. I can't come out of pocket and pay $25,000 a year. This is someone with significant health issues, and they are paying both for themselves and their spouse who retired early. So they're spending about $12,500 a year each for health insurance. That's the most I've seen. Now, they are in a fine spot financially to do so. So it wasn't easy for them, but they recognize, yes, this is a significant cost. But yes, we're in a great spot to be able to pay for it. Whether or not you're in a good spot to pay for it, I start with understanding what you're actually in a position for. Like, can you even retire early before going through the health insurance analysis and then adding in that layer? So start with, before overwhelming yourself, how much do you actually want to spend in retirement? Is it $4,000 a month? Is it $5,000 a month? Okay. Are we going to retire and need health insurance for 5 years until Medicare kicks in at 65? Is it 10 years? Is it I'm covered, but my spouse isn't covered? What are all the little implications that go on there, which become big implications? So I'm going to go through this in more detail with you in today's video, but please know I also do have an ebook right here, which is my complete guide to an early retirement, where I talk about this in a whole lot more detail, where I go over the private health insurance exchange, the marketplace, where I go over short-term coverage, and I go over all these different ways that you can actually get health care, because I just care about this deeply. I don't want you retiring and going, hey, yeah, I retired at 65 when these past 5 years, I could have spent more time with my brother or my mom when they weren't in great health, or I could have traveled more, and I just didn't plan for healthcare. That to me is lazy planning. I want to make sure that you are absolutely in a great spot to retire early. I am the meanest early retirement planner, so I will not let you retire too early if you're not in a spot to do so, at least for my clients. For all of you, I want to make sure that if you're looking at an early retirement, you're not going simply, oh my gosh, where's it going to come from? I'm not going to retire. For the majority of my clients, they will say, hey, Ari, should I go on COBRA? And COBRA is something that, for all of you that aren't aware, once you leave your employer, you can actually remain on the same coverage you're on. Normally, there's a 2% administrative cost that you're still going to have to pay. So it's the same plan you're on right now. If you love your current insurance plan, you get to keep that. Maybe there's a little bit of an additional cost, about 2% or so, just for administration purposes, and you can keep that coverage for up to 18 months. So for the large majority of you, you're going, hey, that's a pretty good deal. Like, I want to stay on that plan. It's great. Others of you are going, listen, I'm in good health. I really don't think that I need to stay on my current coverage. What other options are there? And you could go on the marketplace and you might see that it's going to cost you $500 a month. You might see it's going to cost you $1,000 a month. But what I want you to do, every state's a little different. I want you to ask yourself, what are the pro tips that maybe I should be considering when it comes to an early retirement, especially with healthcare? That's where I come in. Because what you might do is look at your situation like the following. And this is just a hypothetical, but this happened 2 hours ago, so it's top of mind. You might go, wait a second, I want to retire early at 60, but you know what? I've got that brokerage account. And so this brokerage account is going to help me bridge the gap until I actually need to pull in from my retirement accounts, like my IRAs and my Roth IRAs. So I'm going to use this brokerage account, and it's going to keep my income low, meaning maybe I've got Apple stock or maybe I've got another stock position. And so it's going to allow me to keep my income really low. So I'm going to be 60, and technically my income could be zero. And this was a recent client. Their income was zero, and they're like, Ari, this is awesome. I'm going to get such a big healthcare subsidy because my income's super low. So I'm going to get these premium tax credits. It's awesome. The government's doing this. Oh my gosh. I'm going to pay like $50 a month, Ari. Like, I beat the system. I said, you can keep doing that. They're like, yeah, that's my plan. That's pretty awesome. I go, or you could consider paying a whole lot more in taxes. And I'll joke with them and they go, why would I do that? I go, because if you don't do any of this in the future, you're going to be hit with these big RMDs, required minimum distributions, where you're going to be forced to take out more money than you know what to do with. And you're like, what's the problem here? The problem is, let's assume you have $1 million in an IRA and it grows and grows. And when you have to start those required distributions, you're 75 and now it's $3 million. You might be forced to take out $200,000+ a year, and you're going to go, Ari, I don't need $200,000+ every year. I told you $5,000 a month or $6,000 a month was plenty. I go, I know. The government doesn't care. So they're going to force you to take out a certain amount every single year. And once it starts, it doesn't stop and it keeps growing. So what I want you to do instead is maybe consider paying a little bit in taxes through this Roth conversion to, yes, you're giving up that $50 a month, meaning you're going to have to pay more for healthcare. And some people are like, I don't want to do that. I go, you don't have to, but here's how much it's going to save you in the future. And so if you're looking for like a 20-minute case study on that, you can see if you click this video here, I go through that in more detail. So if that's of interest, great. If you're going, no, I just really want to get more of a sense of, marketplace and healthcare and how much might this cost, the majority of my clients, you're probably looking at $10,000 a year to $20,000 a year. So you might retire, and let's assume you and your spouse are going to retire at 62. What might happen is you're going to retire at 62 and go, Hari, how are we going to bridge the gap until 65? Or maybe you're 45, going, I want to retire really early. What am I going to do the next 20+ years? So let's just take the first example. Let's assume you're 62. What you're going to do is you're going to go, okay, maybe it's going to be $20,000 a year between both of us. Let's factor that into the plan. So call it a $60,000 expense the next 3 years. How are we going to pay for that? Is it going to come from an IRA? Is it going to come from Social Security? Is it going to come from rental income? Is it going to come from a pension? And say, hey, do we have the finances to make it happen? And if so, it's pretty simple, which is you're not going to love it, but you go out of pocket, you pay for it, and you go retire early because you're in a great spot. Other times you go, well, what if I tried to keep my income lower? Or what if I did Roth conversions? And that's the more in-depth planning that I'm doing with my clients. But for most of you, I want to make sure that you're thinking about it correctly, which is, okay, let's assume you're retiring at 45 with my second example. You might need this income for 20+ years. And I have a client right now that is actually retiring early, and they're on short-term health insurance. And you're like, what is that? That's where they're literally pretty much just paying for catastrophe coverage, which means they don't have many health conditions right now. They're in good health. They're like, I don't want to pay $500 a month or $1,000 a month for health insurance for myself and my whole family. I don't need to. I just want to make sure if I get cancer or some major disease that I'm covered. And so they're not going to do that forever, but they're going to say, hey, for the first few months, I'm in a good spot. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm even going to open up a brokerage account, and I'm going to fund dollars that otherwise I was going to pay into this policy for healthcare that I'm going to now just put into what I call the RE healthcare account, where I'm adding new dollars in this hypothetical. Let's assume that there was $1,000 a month premium that you had to pay every single month. What I'll do is I'll say, I'm going to pay that $1,000 a month, but just to yourself. So I'm going to, let's assume it's me. I'm 45. I know I don't look 45, but I'm 45 in this example. I'm going to pay $1,000 a month to my brokerage account. I'm going to call it RE Health Insurance. Then after 3 years, I've got $36,000 in there. Maybe it's got a little bit of growth. So let's call it $40,000. And now something comes up where I've got to pay $10,000 out of pocket. Or as opposed to just throwing away those premiums every month, I was just paying them to myself. And we'll use a similar strategy for long-term care for some of our clients, where the truth is they have plenty of assets that they can self-insure. They don't need to go out and buy a long-term care policy, when in reality, a lot of my clients who bought long-term care policies don't even end up reaping the benefits, because by the time they turn it on, they may live just a couple of months or a year or so, and they would have paid $300,000-$400,000 into this. They live a year, they reap a little bit of the benefits, when in reality, what they should have done is paid to a brokerage account all of those premiums for all those years. Now let's assume there's $400,000 and they pass away. Well, $400,000 now goes to their children. So it's a legacy play as well as a long-term care play. So these are the types of strategies I want you to think through if you're considering early retirement, which is anyone before 65. It can be your early 40s, it can be your early 50s, it can be your early 60s. I want to make sure that you're doing all the right things. And like I said, there's a lot of nuance to this, tax planning, healthcare. If you're looking for a holistic planner that doesn't just focus on this, but also on where's income going to come from when you retire? Do I have enough to retire? How much do I want to spend? What are all those tax strategies that are going to actually help me pay 0% in taxes? I'm one of the weird advisors that says everyone doesn't need an advisor. Now I'll get some emails from people, other advisors saying, hey, don't say that, Ari, like you're hurting my business. I'm like, I don't care. The truth is, it just depends what stage of life you're in and what experience you're looking for. So I think it makes sense to pay an advisor once you're really, call it 1 to 3 years out from retirement, going, how am I going to optimize this to put myself in the best position possible and help navigate that transition into retirement. When you're early on in your career, I'd rather you don't pay those fees to an advisor, and instead you're letting that grow and compound until it gets to this point where it actually makes sense to hire an advisor, where there's quantifiable benefits from doing so. So hopefully this video was helpful. If you have any questions on any of this, of course, you guys can all reach out to me. Please let me know in the comments if this video was helpful. And I love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.